Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So we do have just released information, relatively breaking news that actually recently just came out literally like an hour ago. But basically we have incredibly great news to share. Now there is one maybe slightly not so good news that you guys may not want to necessarily hear. But I do think that if you guys were able to do the math in its entirety, I think that it's going to be considered really great news for probably, I would say, maybe over 80% of you guys, the majority of you guys. Certainly if you are someone that has been on unemployment since last year, and even more certainly if you've actually been unemployed since the beginning of the pandemic. And I actually feel you guys, because if you guys know is I work in events and film outside of this, so you can only imagine is that when the lockdown happened, what happened to basically every single person who works in my industry or anything that involves working with people. But we're gonna get right to the really great news, and then the one slight news that you guys maybe have to know about. But before we begin, make sure you smash the like button in light of a lot more good news, more or less over the last couple of days. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification button if you guys are brand new here and interested in getting updates on stimulus, unemployment, and other kinds of finance topics. And feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about really honestly anything at all if you guys wanted to say hi. And actually maybe especially true maybe by the end, because there is something that was changed with the stimulus, something that they did take out, but also something that they did add. It'll make a lot more sense, so definitely watch through for that. So with that being said, let's get started. Now to start with, I guess the one lesser good news to share with you guys just to get it through, is that they did actually recently make one change to the unemployment extension, that they might actually now start to cut it actually from 400 to 300 hours. Now I promise there is a much better news to come after this, but because of that reason, there are going to be a lot of people I know that are going to be very, emotional about it, and there's reason to be, because they are going to be potentially reducing the unemployment. This was just released like an hour ago, literally, if you are watching this the day that this video came out. But on to maybe more brighter news is that the first slightly mild brighter news is that they are looking to actually possibly extend the unemployment even longer now by actually an extra month. So instead of actually ending at the very end of August, they're now going to potentially be taking it now to the very end of September. So you guys are going to be getting an extra month of unemployment, and it's not just even just the boost, but actually even the length of the unemployment. Because keep in mind is that without this boost, there is a chance that there might even be people, and it's not just about the 300, but there might even be people, especially if you have been on unemployment for, let's just say, several months now, that might actually be losing their unemployment in its entirety. The great news is that we will now get another extension by an even additional month. So this is talking about another 4 to 5 weeks. Now, the maybe truly really great news to really share, and I know this is something that we briefly subtly mentioned, but now today, I guess just a couple weeks from when we kind of briefly mentioned it maybe a couple weeks ago, it's looking even more likely now is that if you guys remember, is that we did mention something on a potential like $10,000 tax cut, because this is actually something that's going to be impacting a lot of different people. The really great news is that it does look promising now, relatively promising. We just have to wait to confirm, but it does look relatively promising now, is that they look like they are now going to be implementing some kind of tax cut up to $10,000 for anyone that has been on unemployment. And I think that, like, especially if you are someone that has been on unemployment since the pandemic started, if you have collected over maybe something, let's just say over $10,000 on unemployment, or maybe if the most of your income from last year was pretty much only from unemployment, we could have been looking at a potential tax. And I don't know if anyone's been following the tax rate, but depending on where you are, obviously your details, how you file. But I think for the majority of us is that if you have been collecting unemployment since especially the start of the pandemic, we could have potentially been talking about a tax bill at the end after filing our taxes of somewhere between, let's just say, 2, 3, or even 4,000. I wouldn't even be shocked, honestly, if with like let's just say several $1,000s. The great news is that if they are able to carry through and go through with this tax cut, it's going to potentially save a lot of us that are here. I'd say probably more than 80% of us here, if I had to gauge, let's just say several $1,000s on the spot that we can now thankfully hold on to maybe be able to use for something else into the future, or if we've already used that amount of money to pay for different things between then and today as we're watching this. Now, the other great news to share is that at this time is that they are still very much, inside of their Senate vote-a-rama session. We talked a little bit about yesterday, including actually interestingly about the $10,000 EIDL. Long story short is that it's basically a grant that's supposed to give to some people that are either if you are a small business or if you happen to be self-employed or have any kind of side hustle, even if it's something like Uber, DoorDash, or anything like that. We talked a lot more about a potential $10,000 grant yesterday, so definitely check that if you guys are interested. I think the video is literally just called extra $10,000 for some. But so everything right now, the great news is that it's still looking on track to basically take over. The other actually really great news to share actually is that there are actually a few states that are now starting to come out. I know one of them is actually New Jersey, and the belief is that there's going to be a lot of other states that are potentially going to follow. And the idea is that it's even looking more likely that the majority of the states to get on to the next unemployment, it's looking right now like it's probably going to be an automatic smooth rollover process. There are now states that are starting to release information that if you're hoping to prep up for when they roll over to the new unemployment, especially if you've been here for at least a year, it looks like for a lot of states now is that they're really just telling everyone to just stay still, maybe just relax for a little bit, even though it might be a little bit difficult, into basically next week, because it does look like, with the hope of everything going smooth and approval, so with the hope of a smooth approval, that it's probably going to be rolling over smoothly for the majority of the states. Not every single state. There will still be some states that maybe have to do a certain something or reapply, but it does look really promising for certainly at least most states. So that is the really great news to share. So that's what I really wanted to cover in today's update. Hopefully most of you guys found this relatively insightful. Remember to smash the like button if you guys hopefully did. It's always really greatly appreciated. Also just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone that's really shared their support, especially if you've been here for a while. Consider subscribing if you guys are brand new here. Always happy to have new people, and feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly really anything at all, maybe your personal thoughts about this recent change, because there is a little bit of a lesser good news to it, but I think that overall, if you were to do the math overall, I think it is still considered really great news for certainly most people. But feel free to let me know what you guys think. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, have an amazing weekend or week depending on when you're watching this, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.